Hello, look at my, we have completed the first two problems in the mutual fund. Now it is the third problem. Just look at the third problem. Okay, it is also relating to NAV computation. Okay, look at the third problem. Based on the following information, determine the NAV of a regular income scheme. Emma, as I said in the theory class, different schemes will be based on the different objectives of the financial investor, different financial objectives of the investor. In a regular income scheme, so it suits one sector of one kind of investors. The object is regular income, maybe retired people. For them, capital appreciation is not the criteria. They are looking at the regular income. They're looking at the regular income. We'll show you that point. Right. But mutual fund, in a mutual fund, different schemes are framed. In a mutual fund, different schemes are framed. The objective of each scheme suits the particular objective of a financial objective of a investor. So in our problem, the scheme objective is a regular income scheme. The scheme objective is a regular income scheme. Regular income scheme. So this is the one of the financial objective of retired people. Example, financial objective of suitable for retired people, suitable for retired people, suitable for retired people. Okay, who wants regular income? Suitable for retired people who wants regular income are widows, are widows with children or without children. So are widows, those people who don't have any other income. For them, this kind of schemes may be suitable, because here they will keep on paying the dividends and interest, etc. Regular income scheme. That is the reason. Okay, ma? Right. Now look at this point, regular income scheme. What is the question? Based on the following information, determine the NAV of a regular income scheme as per unit basis. On per unit basis. Listed shares at cost, ex dividend, cash in hand, bonds and debentures at cost. Of these bonds not listed and quoted is 1. Other fixed interest securities at cost 4.5. Dividend accrued 0.8. Amount payable on shares 6.32. Expenditure accrued 0.75. Number of units 20 lakhs. Current realizable value of fixed income securities 106.5. The listed shares were purchased when index was 1000. Present index is 2300. Value of listed bonds and debentures at NAV date is 8 crores. There has been a dimension of 20% in unlisted bonds and debentures. Other fixed interest securities are at cost. Other fixed interest securities are at cost. A very good problem based on valuation of investment portfolio, right? So now we'll identify what are the assets and what are the liabilities. Next, we'll go how to value each asset. We have to calculate the net assets value. First, identify how many assets are there and how many liabilities are there. Second phase is how to value each asset. Okay, right? So first, we'll identify how many assets are there. First, we'll identify how many assets are there. Look at problem number. Okay. So we'll put assets and liabilities, assets and liabilities, liabilities amount, assets amount. Okay, right. Liabilities amount, assets amount. Okay, right. So first we'll identify how many assets are there and how many liabilities are there. Then we'll go for this point. First point, listed shares is one asset, cash in hand, one asset. We'll write it. Listed shares is an asset or liability. Listed shares is an asset or liability, asset. Listed shares. Next, cash in hand is second asset. Cash in hand is second asset. Cash in hand is second asset. Next, third point is bonds and debentures at cost. Bonds and debentures at cost. Of these bonds not listed and quoted. Of these, that means we have both listed bonds and we have both unlisted bonds also. We have both listed bonds and unlisted bonds also. So therefore, we'll write listed bonds and debentures. Listed bonds and debentures. Listed bonds and debentures. Next, unlisted bonds and debentures. Unlisted bonds and debentures. We'll write full, otherwise we'll confuse. Unlisted bonds and debentures. listed bonds and debentures, unlisted bonds and debentures. Unlisted bonds or debentures. Okay, ma? Unlisted bonds and debentures. Unlisted bonds and debentures. Okay, listed bonds and debentures and unlisted bonds and debentures. Next, look at the next one is other fixed income securities. Other fixed income securities. This is also an asset. Other fixed income securities. We'll write it here, assets. First list out the assets, then we'll value the assets. Other fixed income securities. Other fixed income securities. Emma, bonds and debentures has already been given. They have already given bonds and debentures. So then you'll ask, sir, if bonds and debentures have already been given, then what would be this other investment, other fixed income securities? Maybe treasury bills or government bills. Maybe treasury bills or commercial papers. Maybe treasury bills or commercial papers, or certificate of deposits, or certificate of deposits. It can be any fixed income securities. Emma, fixed income securities is not only bonds and debentures. The universe of fixed income securities is very vast. Okay, in fact, the equity market is more popular among the investor. But if you look at the size of the capital market, fixed income market is more larger than the equity market, and fixed income market is more complicated than the equity valuation. And your career also very lucrative in fixed income valuation rather than in equity valuation, because valuation of equity, valuation of fixed income instruments is much more complicated than valuation of equity. Okay, right? So therefore, the universe of fixed income securities is very vast, and we are looking at only these two, bonds and debentures. So therefore, apart from bonds and debentures, there may be many types of fixed income securities like treasury bills, commercial papers, certificate of deposits, etc. Remember, fixed income market is much larger than the equity market, and fixed income market valuation is much complicated than the equity valuation. Okay. Right. Anyway, so since bonds and debentures has already been given, I just given an example of what would be this other fixed income securities. Okay. Next. Dividend accrued. Dividend accrued. Sir, what is this dividend accrued? Dividend accrued. Is it an asset or liability? It is an asset. Why it is an asset? Very simple. Why? What does it mean? Dividend accrued. What do you mean by dividend accrued? Mutual fund is there. Mutual fund, and it has invested in some other company. Mutual fund and some other company. Mutual fund has invested money in the company. Mutual fund has invested money in the company. Say example TCS. Mutual fund has invested in the shares of TCS. And this TCS has declared the dividend, but not yet paid. Emma, after declaration, remember the provisions of company law, which you might have read in CA Inter. After declaration, company will be having 30 days time to pay the dividend. Once the dividend is declared, either at the general meeting or at the board meeting, company will be having 30 days time to pay the dividend. So company has declared the dividend, but it has not yet paid. The moment the company declared the dividend, will get a right. We have a right to receive. The moment we get the moment the dividend is declared, we'll have a right to receive. We will have a right to receive. So therefore, the dividend is declared, say for example, 20th March. On 31st March, still the company has not yet paid the dividend. But still, since the company has already declared the dividend, we have a right to receive the dividend. Who has a right to receive the dividend, Mutual fund has a right to receive the dividend. Mutual fund has a right to receive the dividend. So therefore, it would be its asset. Dividend accrued. Dividend accrued is the asset. So the company in which the mutual fund has invested is declared the dividend, but it is not yet paid. Dividend is declared but not paid. Therefore, it is called as dividend accrued. That is an asset. Next, amount payable on shares. So what is this? Sir, is it a liability or asset? It is a liability. Sir, why it is a liability? Look at this point. One more company is there. Another company. We'll take the example of another company. We'll take the example of another company. Okay. So mutual fund has invested in the shares of some other company. Some other company purchased partly paid shares. It might arise when the mutual fund is purchased partly paid shares. When the mutual fund has purchased partly paid shares. Now the company raised the call. But the mutual fund has not yet paid. because we'll be having 14 days time to pay the call. Once the call is made, we'll be having 14 days time to pay the call. Emma, remember, if you have purchased the partly paid shares and the call is not made, you have to show as a contingent liability, not a real liability. You have purchased partly paid shares. Company raised a call, show it as a liability. Company has not yet raised a call, show it as a contingent liability. Be careful. So when I'm recognizing a liability, I'm assuming that company has raised a call. The moment company has raised a call, I will incur a liability. Even though I have 14 days time to discharge the liability, 14 days time to pay the liability. Liability accrues as on the date of raising the call. Liability accrues as on the date of raising the call. So therefore, even though I have not paid, it is my liability. Remember, always partly paid shares will not come as a liability. It depends upon whether the call is raised or not. If the call is raised, it is a liability. If the call is not raised, partly paid shares, the remaining amount has to be shown as a contingent liability. Okay, right. Amount payable on shares. Amount payable on shares. So the company in which the mutual fund has invested has raised a call. The company in which mutual fund has invested has raised a call. The company in which the mutual fund has invested raised a call. So therefore, it is our liability. We'll be having 14 days time to pay that. We'll be having 14 days time to pay that. Next. Look at this. Amount payable on shares. Amount payable on shares. It is a liability. Amount payable on shares is a liability. So, okay. Next. Expenditure accrued. Yes, it is the mutual fund expenditure. My expenditure accrued. Expenditure accrued. It is the fund expenditure. Expenditure accrued. Expenditure accrued. It is also liability. So the fund may be having the employees to whom we have to pay the salary. Yes or no, the salary is outstanding or the rent is outstanding. Anything. Expenditure is accrued. Expenditure is accrued. Here ends the list of assets and liabilities. Now the information is relating to how to value the asset. So here we have ended up with all the assets and liabilities. Till here we have ended up with all the assets and liabilities. And now this rest of the information contains how to value the assets. Valuation of assets. So it contains the list of assets and liabilities. So it contains, till here it is an assets. If you look at this point, they have given an information. Till here we have an assets. Till here we have an assets. And we have these two liabilities, and we have these two liabilities, and this is a valuation principle. Principles of valuation methods. Valuation methods. How to value each asset? How to value each asset? Okay. Of course, liabilities there would be no valuation. Only for assets we are looking at the valuation. Next, look at this point. Current realizable value of fixed income securities of face value of ₹100. Look at this point, fixed income securities. First of all, identify how many fixed income securities are there. How many fixed income securities are there? If you look at our balance sheet, we have 3 fixed income securities. Listed bonds, unlisted bonds, and other fixed income securities. All the 3 are fixed income securities. All the 3 are fixed income securities. All the 3 are fixed income securities. Okay, right. Now, to which security this information pertains to? Now the question arises, to which securities the information pertains to. It is not clear. So therefore, we have to read the rest of the question. We have to read the rest of the question to identify to which securities that information pertains. Okay, ma? Right. Next. So for the time being, keep it as a pending. For the time being, keep it as a pending. For the time being, keep it as a pending. Next, look at the next question. The listed shares were purchased when the index was 1000 and the present index is 2000. Present index is 2300. So therefore, we are taking that. So when they have given an index value, we have assumed that it is, we are assuming that, not assuming, outright it is clear. It is an index, it is a fund which has invested in basket of securities. Entire index of securities, say BSE 30 or NSE 50, we have invested in all the securities. Therefore, what we have is a market portfolio. What we have is a market portfolio. Rather than purchasing single share, we have purchased all the 30 shares in BSE or all the 50 shares in NSE. So therefore, rather than giving information for each of the 30 shares, academically, the question will be very lengthy. If they give information TCS, Infosys, Axis Bank, SBI, if they break up the 30 shares or 50 shares, the question will be very lengthy. So therefore, what they have given is they have simplified the information in the question. For our academic sake, for the sake of convenience, they have simplified the information. Rather than giving each and every share what is the cost and what is the market price, they have given the sum total. Sum total of all the 30 shares or 50 shares. Okay, this is cost mark when the index value is 1000, and now the present index is 2300. Then where is the value? So we have invested 20 crores. We have invested 20 crores. At that time, the index is 1000. Now the index is 2300. What is the value? As simple as that. Okay, ma? If the index is appreciated by 1300 or 130%, what is the value? What is the value? Am I right? So that is the point. So listed bonds and debentures. Listed shares. Listed shares. Since the different assets has been given, so what we'll do is, for the sake of convenience, maybe you need not elaborate in the exam, but for your clarity, I'm putting one more column. I'm putting one more column and saying valuation principle or method. Valuation method. Valuation method or principle. Valuation method. Valuation method or principle. How it is valued? Valuation method. How it is valued? So it is valued based on market index. So valuation based on market index. Market index valuation. So this is based on market index. It is based on a market index. It is based on market index. How we got that? How we got that? 20 crores is our investment. 20 crores is our investment. 20 crores is our investment. So 20 crores is our investment when the index is 1000 points. When the index is 1000 points. Now at the time of purchase, now the index value is 2300 points. Now the index value is 2300 points. Now the index value is 2300 points. What is the value? What is the value of the debentures? As simple as that. 20 divided by 1000 into 2300. Take it as Excel. Okay, 20,000 divided by 1000 into 2300 into 2300. So this is the value. This is the value. So it will be 46 crores. It will be 46 crores. It will be 46 crores. I'll put it as a 46. I'll put it as 46. Then now we'll write it in crores. Okay, just for your knowledge, I have given this. You need not write this column in the exam, just for the sake of clarity. Which asset is valued how? Which asset is valued how? Market index 20 crores, 1000 points at the time of purchase into 2300 points at the time of valuation. So therefore, 46 is the value of the listed shares. Okay, right. Listed shares is done. Next, value of listed bonds and debentures. Value of listed bonds and debentures is 8 crores. Value of listed bonds and debentures is 8 crores. Straight away substitute that figure. Value of listed bonds and debentures 8 crores. Value of listed bonds and debentures 8 crores. Value of listed bonds and debentures is 8 crores. Okay. Next, unlisted. Value of listed bonds and debentures they have given. Next, unlisted bonds and debentures. This is also market value. This is also market value. This is also market value. Next, unlisted bonds and debentures. Unlisted bonds and debentures. Look at this point. There has been a dimension of 20% in 20% in unlisted bonds and debentures. Unlisted bonds and debentures 20% dimension. That means we have purchased at 1 crore minus 20% is the decrease. Minus 20% is the decrease. So therefore, it will be 0.8 crores. Unlisted bonds and debentures 20% dimension. 20% dimension. Unlisted bonds and debentures 20% dimension. So therefore, we'll get 1 crore into 1 crore into 1 minus 20%. 1 crore into 1 minus 0.2. That will be 0.8 crores. That will be 0.8 crores. That will be 0.8 crores. So this is how the unlisted bonds and debentures are valued. Now look at this point. Now look at the question. Other fixed income securities are at cost. Other fixed income securities are at cost. Other fixed income securities are at cost 4.5. So therefore, other fixed income securities are at cost. Other fixed income securities at cost. At cost. It will be 4.5 crores. It will be 4.5 crores. Sorry, the above has already been given the crores, right? I did not write it as a crores. Okay, right. Other fixed income securities are 4.5 crores. Look at this information. So here, if you look at this point, there are two confusing information. We have to interpret carefully this point here. On one side, they are saying that, sir, other fixed income securities are to be valued at cost. other fixed income securities are to be valued at cost. On one side, they are saying other fixed income securities to be valued at cost. On the other side, they have given the realizable value. On the other side, they have given the realizable value. Okay. Look at this point. Other fixed income securities are at cost. If you look at this information, other fixed income securities are at cost. They have given the realizable value. They have given the realizable value. That means if you look at this point, what we have purchased is 4.5. So 4.5 if you purchased at 100 rupees, now the value is 106.5. 106.5. It will get the you will get the realizable value, but they are asking us to value at cost. They have given the realizable value information, but don't confuse that. For the sake of information, they have given what is the realizable value, but they are valuing at cost only. Maybe because of long-term investments. Remember AS13, long-term investments. Long-term investments are valued at cost because we are not going to sell right now immediately. We are not going to sell now immediately. It may be long-term investments. That is the reason we are valuing at cost. That is the reason we are valuing at cost. So therefore, they have given a realizable information, but they are asking us to value the cost. That may be one information, one way of interpretation. Another way of interpretation is that you can take this as 106.5. Already this is 106.5. You can assume like that also. You can assume that is 106.5. That is 106.5. The cost incurred is at cost. They have given, right, at cost. So therefore, we have to assume that you might have purchased on the last day of the financial year. We might have purchased on the last day of the financial year. This is 106.5 only, not at face value. That is the market value. That is the market value. This is the face value. This is the face value. They have already given at cost. They have already given at cost. So therefore, you need not make any adjustments further. You need not make any adjustments further. Okay. So straight away take this point 4.5. So this they have given just for the sake of information. Don't confuse it. Either first one way of interpretation is that this is the cost. 4.5 is the cost. Market value will be 4.5 divided by 100 into 106.5. This may be the market value, but the investment is long-term investment. We want to value at cost. This is one interpretation. This is one interpretation. Another interpretation is that this 4.5 itself is market value and both cost. Market value and cost, because purchased on the last day of the year. Purchased on the last day of the year. Purchased on the last day of the year. These are the two possible ways of interpretation. That is both market value and cost, both are one and the same, because we have purchased on the last day of the financial year. Either two options are there. You can take any interpretation. You can take any interpretation, but whatever may be the interpretation, they have already given that it is a cost, and they want to value at cost. Therefore, straight away take it. I'm just asking, what does this information has the relevance? This information has a relevance. One way is that this information is only for the sake of your investors information sake. That data is only for the information sake of the investor, but you have to value only at the cost as per our accounting policy. As per our accounting policy, we have to value only at cost. This will be one thing. Another interpretation may be this is both market value and cost. But whatever may be the interpretation, we need not bother about that. The only thing is we have to take 4.5 crores only. Just for your knowledge, I am telling. So what does it stand for? So what does this information stands for? Okay, ma. Either you can take this interpretation one, or you can take this interpretation two. But in both cases, our value for calculation purpose is 4.5 only. Our value for our calculation purpose is 4.5 only, 4.5%. Next, dividend accrued and cash in hand not applicable. No valuation technique. Cash in hand and dividend accrued, no, not applicable. Valuation method is not applicable. Straight away will take, irrelevant. Cash in hand is how much more? 1.23. Cash in hand is 1.23 crores. We'll write cash in hand 1.23 crores. Cash in hand 1.23 crores will write. Next, dividend accrued. Dividend accrued. What is the dividend accrued? Look at the point of dividend accrued. Dividend accrued is 0.8. Dividend accrued is 0.8. Dividend accrued is 0.8. Dividend accrued is 0.8. Next, amount payable on shares. These are no valuation method. Amount payable on shares is 6.32 lakhs. Amount pay 6.32 crores. Sorry. Amount payable on shares 6.32 crores. Next, expenditure incurred. Expenditure incurred how much? Expenditure incurred accrued 0.75. Expenditure accrued 0.75. Now value the total assets. Total assets. Look at the value of the total assets. total. So what is the total assets and total liabilities? Total assets and total liabilities. Total assets. Okay, right. Look at the total assets. Right. 46 plus 1.238. We'll write this point here. 46 plus another one is what? 1.23. Another one is what? 8. Next 0.8. Better put it in the decimals. Better put it in the decimals. Okay, this will be 46.00. 46.00. This will be 0.80. This will be 4.5. Okay, so 46, 1.23, 8, 0.8, 4.5, 0.8, 4.5, 0.8, 4.5. Sorry, 46, 1.23, 8, 0.8, 4.5, and again 0.8, and again 0.8. What is the total value of the assets? 61 crores 33 lakhs. 61 crores 33 lakhs. 61 crores 33 lakhs. Make it as uniform format. No? Presentation should be clear. Okay, 61.33. Okay, total assets. Now our total liabilities will also be the same. Total liabilities will also be the same. 61.33 lakhs. Total liabilities. Total liabilities. Total liabilities. What is the total liabilities? What is the total liabilities? Look at this 6.3 to 0.75. 6.3 to 0.75. 6.3 to 0.75. 6.3 to 0.75. 7.07. 7.07 is the total liabilities. 7.07 is the total liabilities. So therefore, net assets. We'll take net assets. Okay, net assets. Okay, net assets of the fund. We'll take it as a net assets of the fund. Okay, net assets of the fund. Net assets of the fund. Net assets of the fund. Total assets minus liabilities. Total assets minus liabilities. That will be 61.33 minus 7.07. Minus 7.07. Look at this 61.33 minus 7.07. 54.26. 54.26. 54.26. 54.26 is our total net assets of the fund. Net assets of the fund 54.26. Okay, right. Next. So number of units. Look at this information. Number of units. Number of units. How many units? Number of units. Number of units. 10 face value. Number of units. They have given 20 lakhs. 20 lakhs. The above information is crores. The above information is crores. So therefore, we have this also we have to convert into crores. Number of units. Be clear here. Number of units outstanding. Number of units outstanding. Number of units outstanding will be 0.2 crores. 0.2 crores. 20 lakhs means 0.2 crores. 20 lakhs because the above is in crores. We should not take 20. We'll get the misleading figure. We'll get 0.2. We'll get 0.2 crores. Okay, so this will be the number of units. 0.2 crores. All are crores. We wrote the above in crores. All are crores. Next in rupees. So net assets value. NAV, net assets value. Net asset value per unit. NAV per unit. NAV per unit. This will be rupees. This will be rupees, not in crores. Okay. Be clear, this will be in rupees. Because the above is crores, this will be in rupees. 0.2. 54.26 divided by 0.2. 54.26 divided by 0.2 crores. So we'll get 20 lakhs, that much of units, 0.2 units. So 271.3. 271.3 is the 271.3. 271.3. So this will be our final answer. Net assets value per unit. Net assets value per unit. Okay, right. This will be our final answer. 271.3. This will be our final answer. In this problem, the only area where you should be concentrated and confusing is that the fixed income securities. How the fixed income securities are valued. In total, how many fixed income securities are there? That we have to understand. Look at the question carefully. I'll hint where you make mistakes in the exam. First mistake is we have to read this point. Of these. This is the point we have to be careful of this. This is the point we should be careful of this. That means this one is including in this 4.3. This one is including 4.3. Anyway, that is not necessary. because the listed they have already given the value of it. Okay, right. So next this we are value. Next, the only point is that other fixed income securities are at cost. This is the only area where you have to be very careful. On one hand, they are giving other fixed income securities are at cost. Other hand, they are giving current realizable value of the fixed income securities. So unlisted bonds and debentures, listed bonds and debentures they have given. So this is clear. This is clear. Emma, this is clear. The information relating to this is clear, and the information relating to this is clear. The only confusing area is this point only. The only confusing area is this point only. Other fixed income securities. This is the careful area. You have to be careful in the exam. So that is the only area we should be very careful in the exam. The rest of the points are same. And one more area where you should not make the mistake is dividend accrued. Dividend accrued. Emma, look at this point. Company, mutual fund, unit holders. Company, mutual fund, and unit holders. So if the dividend accrued is in between this, it is called as an asset. It is an asset to the mutual fund. It is an asset to the mutual fund. On the other hand, if the mutual fund has declared a dividend, but that is an outstanding declared dividend. If the mutual fund has declared a dividend to the unit holders, but it is not yet paid, then it is a liability to the mutual fund. Must be clear. If the dividend accrued, if the dividend is declared by this company and it is not yet paid, then it is an asset to the mutual fund. If the dividend is declared by the mutual fund to the unit holders and it is not paid, then it is a liability to the mutual fund. So in the given case, we have taken this dividend accrued is a asset to the mutual fund. And amount payable on shares. Remember, partly paid shares. If the calls are raised, then liability. If the calls are raised, then you have to show it as a liability. If the calls are not raised, then you have to show it as a contingent liability, not as a liability. You will liability arises only when the calls are raised by the company. So therefore, you have to be very careful about this point. Here we are assuming that calls are made, but not yet paid, by the firm, but not yet paid by the fund. Therefore, it is the point. And this dividend declared by company, but not yet received by the fund. And this expenditure accrued, no confusion, you will take it. Okay. Right. And one more point is lakhs here. Here the information given is gross and this information is lakhs. Don't blindly take 20, take 0.2 because in gross we are taking. And the rest of the point index valuation is same. Only thing is be careful in this fixed income valuation, and dividend accrued, don't take it as a liability, it is taken as an asset. Amount payable on shares, look at this. There is no guarantee that you will get the same problem in the exam. There may be slight changes to this problem. If they say shares purchased are the partly paid shares and the calls are not yet made, therefore in that case the balance figure you have to show it as a contingent liability. Right? Payable. Okay, due, payable. Payable means liability has already arisen. Right. So therefore, for the sake for your comfort, I have given this column of valuation method. How each asset is valid. Okay. Right. Remaining problems we'll discuss in the next class.